to the Ladybug Laboratory podcast. My name is Lily and I will be your host for today. So this is a podcast all about knitting and other various fiber crafts. Today is going to be almost entirely about knitting. I am recording this on Wednesday, June 20th, and I am on Canandaigua Lake. As many of you know, I live and work in California, but I'm on vacation with my family. I'm actually going to be on vacation for 3 weeks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in Prattle. But I wanted to go ahead and give you guys a heads up for some things that may or may not be different about today's podcast because of that. So, a couple of things. I'm going to be announcing some changes for the podcast, but today, instead of focusing on all of my works in progress and all of my finished objects, I'm just going to talk about the projects that I have with me on vacation. And I'm going to go over them as works in progress the same way that I would any other episode, but I'm also going to talk about why I chose to bring them for vacation. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry. All of that info is below. The camera just fell over, so I'm not 100% sure what we got last, but hopefully we're good. I usually prop my phone up. I record on my phone, and I have a selfie stick that I use solely for the purpose of taking pictures of finished objects and recording, and I will prop it up on something, but I forgot it, and I'm on vacation, so we gotta make do with what we got, right? So there is a podcast group on Ravelry, the Ladybug Laboratory podcast group, and that will contain the show notes as well as an Ask Me Anything thread, a suggestions thread, etc. Today I'm going to show you my current projects, explain why I brought them. Then I'm going to show you other projects that I brought, and explain why those were the ones that I picked for my vacation, as well as talking to you guys about those projects, details about them, yarn, modifications, patterns, etc. Then I'm going to talk about some March totals for how my yardage has gone this year, as well as various handmade items that I have brought with me on vacation. I'm sorry, I keep thinking that the stairs all the way up to the cabin are right there. I keep thinking that somebody in my family is trying to get a hold of me. As well as various handmade items that I brought and why I brought them. So yeah, today I am just going to be drinking water, and a boat has just gone by, so the waves picked up. If they get too loud, I'm sorry, I'll try and cut some of the extra noise out in edit. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so first up, projects that I brought, and I'm not sure if you can see them, but there is a little family of ducks on the shore. They are bathing and pruning themselves. I'll get some close-up video and put it in at the end if you're interested. But there is a mama duck and 9 ducklings. They're about teenage ducks. We have seen many, many families of ducks here. There are some super-duper baby ducks. There are some sort of young adult ducks, some teenage ducks. It's really lovely. Yeah, so current projects, and I only have three. I cannot math. I have 4 project bags sitting in front of me, so 3 projects that I currently have in progress that I brought with me. So the first one is living in my Lone Larch Studio bags, and it has this little apple pin on it that I got for finishing my teaching credential. And this is one that you've seen before, and that is my Wibbly Waffly socks. So these are the Blueberry Waffles pattern, and I am knitting them with Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey yarn, which is from Into the World, WHIRLED. And so last time you saw them, I was on the very bottom of the first sock. So this is the first sock, and I had started and almost finished the toe, but if you see that little marker right there, that marker is where I had started the toe, and I tried it on my husband. I'm knitting these on smaller needles that I normally knit for him. I'm trying to get a tighter gauge, and I think it's actually going to be better in the long run, but turns out they were too small. So I frogged back and I added a few more rows, maybe it looks like 3 or 4 sets of the blueberry waffle pattern, and then I did the toe. So what I did for this is I cast on 64 stitches. I did a basic 2x2 rib for 15 rows with, I cast on with the long tail invisible Italian tubular cast on. Oof. I've heard it under any combination of those names. And then just transition smoothly into the blueberry waffle pattern. I did a basic slip stitch heel flap and gusset. I think in retrospect I should have made this a little bit longer because I did go with a smaller needle size, and my husband does have abnormally large heels or disproportionately large heels. So I made the foot about as long as the leg, and they looked very long to me, very long and skinny, but you know, I guess that's what happens when I get a smaller gauge. It'll stretch more, so it needs to be longer in order to accommodate. When I went and did the heel flap on this one, let me see if you can tell. Not really. All right, I'll try and show you on the sides. So this is the front of the sock, and along the right side of the instep, okay, it starts with 2 rows of knitting as part of the rib. And then on the left side of the instep, it ends with 2 rows of purl as part of the rib. And so of course that sort of made it look a little bit lopsided. It looked like the pattern was lopsided because you can see it looks like there's extra knitting down this edge. And in retrospect, I believe I would have offset the heel flap by about 1 stitch. So it would be 1 stitch of knitting on either side. But, you know, I didn't do it, and it's fine. I just wanted to get these done. I'm not super particular about socks like this. I'm just trying to get them done for my husband. He loves hand knit socks, although more on that a little bit in Prattle. But anyway, so I finished those, and I started the next one. So for this one, I've gotten through about here. So, I don't know, maybe a third of the way past the gusset. And what I did, if you remember on that one, the right had, when you looked at it face on, the right had the knit column and the left had the purl column. This one, I did the opposite. So looking at it face on, the right starts with a purl column and the left ends with a knit column. And I figured that way they won't look so lopsided when they're on either feet. So either there'll be more knitting always on the inside or always on the outside, but at least they'll sort of mirror each other a little bit instead of looking wonky either way. They'll be like this or like this, but they won't be like that or like that. And that was my sort of compromise to myself in terms of how to, you know, deal with it. It made me feel like it was less lopsided. I thought about just doing the second sock with 1 knit stitch on either side, but that was gonna drive me nuts. And this is, you know, he doesn't care. He really doesn't care. He just likes it when they fit. So, yeah. So these I am using my Chogu interchangeable minis, which are the sock sizes. And these are on a US size 1, which is 2.25 millimeters. I haven't knit socks on a US 1 in a very long time. Historically, my gauge has been pretty tight, but it's actually loosening up recently. And I think that's because, you know, I've been getting more comfortable with knitting. I've been doing it more quickly, less anxiously. And so I've realized that I really have to start going down a needle size again. Instead of going down a stitch count, I'm going down a needle size. Yeah, so this yarn, of course, is living in one of my little Ladybug yarn cozies, of which I have 3. And this is my sort of constantly available project. It's simple. It's just 2x2 rib, essentially, and 2 of the rows are complete stockinette. And so I can do it on the plane, I can do it watching TV, I can do it having a conversation. It's easy. And that's great for travel. Another reason that I brought it is because it is small. Socks. Generally when I travel, most of my knitting is with finer weight yarn because it's easier to travel with. It's smaller, it's more compact. Yeah, so that is those socks. I'm gonna pause and restart again in a minute. So right now I am on a dock that sort of juts out from the shore in front of the house that my family is renting, and I thought it might be fun to give you guys sort of a rotating tour of the dock. The lighting is best in the place that I started, so I'll probably do most of my filming over there, but I'll go ahead and show you my second work in progress. So this one is living in my Little Skein in the Big Wool Winnie the Pooh project bag. It has a handle on it that I got at a maker fair, and it also has this little tag. And the reason for that is because I'm always paranoid of losing my knitting when I'm traveling, especially in an airport or any sort of other travel station. And I got these at the Black Squirrel, and they're brilliant. It's a little wood-burned tag. I believe they're custom ordered from Katrinkles, but I'm not 100% sure. So it's got a little acorn, and then, which is the emblem of the Black Squirrel. And then on the back, it has these words, and it says, "If found, please return to the Black Squirrel," and then it has the address. And I think that is just precious. So if it gets lost, people will know where to send it, and it's my local yarn store. I'm going to end up there. So these are my Shirtagal socks. They are from the Socktopus knitting book. I've shown these to you guys before, but I'm using Knit Picks Stroll Brights in the electric blue colorway, and this is what I've got so far. So again, these are fingering weight, they're small, compact, really the main reason that I bring them. Last time that you saw these, I had just about finished the leg. So I'm following the Shirtagal pattern almost completely. I did the same cast on, the invisible Italian tubular, seagulls coming in, 2x2 rib. This time I did it for 20 rows. I usually do 20. I did 15 on my other ones because the blueberry waffles is basically ribbing. So, about 20 rows, and then I transitioned straight into the pattern. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but right up here, this repeat is a little bit shorter, and that's because I forgot a rest row. But I didn't realize that until I was down here, and I wasn't 100% sure what had happened, so I decided to just let it go. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you will know that I got almost done with the foot before I tried it on my husband and realized it did not fit. He definitely needed a bigger heel. So I frogged back. I had knit 15 repeats, so I would pick up 15 stitches on the edge of the heel flap. And the second time I did 19. So it should fit much better. Before I go much farther, I'm going to try it on him again and double check. But I wanted to finish the gusset, which I just did. So the heel flap in this pattern is really cool because it basically continues the pattern of the sock. This is a 64 stitch. I don't know that there's much else to say about this. I haven't really done a lot of modifications other than the heel flap. Yeah, it's a lovely pattern. So let's see. These are also done with my Chiagu interchangeables on US 1.5s, which is a 2.5 millimeter. And that is right now my go-to sock needle size, although that might go back down to ones based on how I like the fabric of this one versus that one. My Chiagu 9-inch ones that I have are in US 2s, and those are just too big at this point. So right now I do have a sock going on those, but that's back at home because, quite frankly, it's not great. I might frog it, to be honest with you, because I'd rather have socks that are durable and hardy than keep going with what I have. But more on that, of course, when I get back home and I can show it to you. So yeah, that is my second work in progress that I brought with me. Okay, so today's third and final actual work in progress is living in my use so-and-so tea time bag, which I love. And this is one of my basic go-to sweater bags. It has another one of the black squirrel tags on it, but this one has a squirrel knitting a sweater. So, and it also has pins from 2 of the cons that I've gone to, gaming cons. I have a 3rd pin, but I haven't gotten a chance to put it on here yet because I just went. So, I am knitting the Mountain Sweater pattern by Natalie. Natalie Knits. I don't remember her last name, but that is her pattern. So, it has a split hem. Give me a second. A couple of the stitches came off. Okay. So this is what I have so far. I'm aiming for about 2 inches of positive ease on this sweater, and the pattern calls for a split hem on the bottom. The back is a little bit longer than the front, so I've started that, I've knit them together, and I have a problem. So, before I go any further, I guess I'll talk about this pattern. So I am using Elspeth Levold, I don't know how to say it. Elspeth Levold Silky Wool, which is 45% wool, 35% silk, 25% nylon. It's 50 grams. It's technically considered a DK weight, but it's definitely more like a fingering weight in actual width. And I'm using purple and white for the pattern. Now, it's going to make these boats. It's going to make purple, you know, little mountains in the top. I'm really excited to wear this, and the pattern has been redone by the designer. She did a second sample, but if you go to the pattern page and you scroll down, you'll see her first sample, and that's what I'm modeling mine after. It has a little bit more positive ease. It has 3/4 length sleeves. I'm gonna wait until the boat goes by. Okay, so there's a big motorboat and a little jet ski boat, and the motorboat stopped, but now the jet ski boat is running in circles around the motorboat. Okay, I think they've stopped. I'm gonna keep going. So, the gauge in this pattern calls for 24 stitches to 4 inches. And I made a swatch, one on 4s, one on 5s. I like the one on 4s better. And so I washed it, and I didn't really block it. I just kind of laid it out to dry. And I got 23 stitches per 4 inches. So I figured that's my gauge, I'll adapt. The pattern comes in 37 and 39, well, 35, 37, 39 inch chests, as well as, or bust measurements, as well as many others, but it has PDFs. Each PDF is like a set of 3, so that the charts don't get too complicated. It's really well done. I really love her patterns. But, so I wanted to do the 39 inch one. With my gauge, that would end up being about 40 inches. But then if I go back and I do the 37 inch one, with my gauge it's just under 38 inches. And so I'm really conflicted. So I've sent messages to a ton of people who have made sweaters with this yarn, and I've said, does this firm up or does it loosen up? Because that's going to determine which one I do. And for the most part, people have gotten back to me and said it definitely spreads and grows when you block it. Which is fine, but I had already blocked that swatch. I didn't block it aggressively, I just kind of laid it there, but I did block it. And so when I measure this, I get like 23.5 stitches. So I am so conflicted. Right now, I've cast on the 37 inch one, which should bring me to 38. So that if it grows, it should reach about 39, which is really, I want exactly 39 inches. I want 2 inches of positive ease. But oh gosh, I have such a headache about this. And I don't know. It's not the end of the world if it ends up too big or too small, but I really want it to fit how I want it to fit, you know, and whatever, it is what it is. So this is going to be a lounge sweater. Part of the reason that I brought this one is because it does have a lot of, it's really more of a fingering weight yarn. It's a little bit thick, kind of almost a sport weight, but really it's about fingering weight. It's more sport weight in the skeins, but when you knit it, it's fingering weight. And so I brought that. It's definitely on the small side, right? I have a worsted weight sweater, but I didn't bring that one. But I also brought a sweater because it's a larger project. It's something I can work on long term instead of having to worry about bringing a ton of projects. And when I get through the stockinette section, so once I get this cast on and really decided, another boat. Sorry. I'm going to be able to do all of the stockinette, and then I'll get into the color work, which is going to be more complicated, and that will be lovely. And I'll get into that a little bit later when I talk about my plans for my vacation. But the vacation really essentially has 3 components to it, and the middle component is going to have a lot of downtime during the day, and that's when I'm going to get to work on my color work, and I'm really excited for that. Back to the question of the sizes. I've cast on the smaller one for now. I'm going to knit probably 1.5 inches past the join of the 2 hems, and then kind of try and block it. Now, of course, blocking on the needles is tough. I don't have my stoppers right now. This is an interchangeable set, but my stoppers are on another project at home. I'll wait. Seems like they're mostly paused. There's 3 of them out there now. Oh, they started again. Well, they certainly look like they're having fun. Little tiny circles and jumping. Okay, I'm just gonna finish talking about this sweater, and then, well, I'm setting up hopefully for the next section, rotating, hopefully they finish. So, after I get about 1.5 inches past the join, I'm hoping to try and block it. Oh my god. Okay, after I get about 1.5 inches past this join, I'm hoping to try and block it as much as I really can while I'm on vacation. I'll sort of stretch it, wash it a little bit, and see how that is, and make a decision from there as to whether or not I want to go up. Now, these are knit on my Chiagu interchangeables from the complete set, and these are US size 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter. Normally what I would do in order to block these is, there we go, they stopped, take the needles off, put the stoppers on, and really wash it pretty vigorously. But all of my stoppers for this size cable, if you're familiar with the Chiagu sets, there's 3 sizes of cables. So there's the large, the small, and then the mini for the socks. All of my stoppers for this size cable are on projects at home. Oh my god. So, somewhere in here I have needle stoppers, and that's what I'll use. On that note, that's all I've got about this project, and I'm going to move on to the next one. I bet you can see the boats in the background. So there's one with the jet ski boat over there, and one over there. This one looks to be leaving. Okay, so things that I brought to continue with my projects. I brought this, and this is a Manicory bag. It's got all these seagulls on it, and I love it for the summer. It also has this pin. I feel like knit. So, I absolutely love this bag. It's got this little starfish, sea star, progress keeper on the zipper. So this one has not been started yet. And this is a project that I brought to replace the purpose of the Shirtgall socks. So if you remember, those are the ones that are a little bit more complicated for a bit of a quieter time, or when I'm not fully engaged as much. And they're, again, a pair of socks. So I am doing the Whiskey and Rye sock pattern, which is by Audrey Nicklin. And that I'm going to be doing, again, this yarn is in one of my little Ladybug yarn cozies, but I'll sort of pop it out for you. So this is a completely one-of-a-kind colorway called Escabutts by the Earl Grey Fiber Studio. And the context of that, of course, is Heather, who runs the studio, is actually an incredibly good friend of mine. And she and I, before she moved up to Seattle, if you don't know, but she and I lived in the same area before she moved. And we were part of, and still are, part of a gaming group that runs a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And like the second session, there was a character, I don't even remember the character's real name. Okay, I think the boats are gone for good. There's still some splashing from their wakes. Oh god, there's another one coming back. Anyway, so the yarn was dyed, and we named the, I don't remember what the character's real name was, but we decided the character's name was Escabutts. And so Heather, before our next session, dyed us all a skein of Escabutts yarn, which was modeled after our D&D book, which is Hoard of the Dragon King, maybe? I'll put it down here. And I just, it was lovely. So I have been wanting to make myself a pair of socks out of that yarn for a while, and I figured now is my time, right? Socks are a great portable project. The other thing that I have in this Ladybug tote bag, which my mother-in-law got me for Christmas a couple years ago, I have extra yarn for my sweater and all of that. I have these two, which are because my grandfather, I made him socks. If you're a very long-term viewer, you'll probably remember them. They were the ones with the boats in them. I don't remember the name of the pattern right now, but I will put it down here. And they were too long, and so he had asked me if I could make them shorter, which I did. And just in case I needed more of the yarn, I brought these. I did not end up needing more of the yarn. In fact, I got rid of quite a bit from the socks, but hey, they were here. And then I also have this. So this is Knox Fiber Company, and this, I don't remember which base this is, but it's the one that has cashmere in it. Put it on the down bar, obviously. And this is a completely one-of-a-kind colorway, another one, that I've been meaning to make myself socks of. Are you noticing a theme here? And these, I'm going to make blueberry waffle socks for myself. So these are going to replace the wibbly waffly socks. And these are, the colorway on this is Do You? Yep. And this is from my friend Chase, who is the owner of the Black Squirrel shop. And she got married in May. I was part of the bridal party. She's a wonderful human being, by the way. And she commissioned from the person behind Knox Yarn is a custom colorway for her wedding. And their vows were, do you? Yep. Do you? Yep. I now pronounce you married. It was so short and sweet and so them, and I loved it. And so everybody in the bridal party got a skein of this yarn. And no. I just caught this in the act of falling over the edge. Whew. Okay. I scraped my knees, but I don't care. I saved it. So, this is from her wedding. Obviously, the cream base is wedding-y, but her wedding colors were mint and peach. Those were the colors that the bridal party had to wear. And also navy blue. Navy blue is what the groom wore, what her sister, who is the maid of honor, wore, or matron of honor, wore, and what the officiant, who is a good friend of ours, wore. So, sort of see them all. So I'm really excited to make myself socks out of these. I kept saying to myself, oh, I don't know if socks are good enough for them, but I'll wear socks. And yes, they're made out of cashmere, but it's a luxurious pair of socks. And I think a blueberry waffle will really show off the colors, so I'm very excited for that. In terms of other things for knitting projects that I brought myself both of my, gosh darn it, both of my Chigu interchangeable sets. So this one contains the large and the small, as well as out here, you know, various cables and stuff like that. And this one is my sock sizes. And that way, you know, I always bring those on longer trips because it's always good to be able to cast something on. And I also brought, give me 1 second, I also brought this little pouch, which I got from someone in the mini skein swap, with a whole bunch of little notions. So I have a Lolo bar, I have a couple of tins of different stitch markers, I have a pair of Ladybug scissors, a stitch marker with Lolo, chapstick, a clover cutting wheel, and a book, measuring tape. So that's been pretty nice as I start projects and use the stitch markers. I've been putting them in the project bags and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I brought for projects. I also brought a printout of a pattern called Muches, and that is from my absolute favorite pair of ankle socks that I've ever made myself. It was like the second pair of socks that I made myself, and I've worn them to death. They're almost completely gone. I'll show those to you in the next segment, but I figured if I do finish all of the projects that I have, which I doubt, I can use leftover yarn, maybe from Escabuts or from Do You Yep, and make myself a pair of ankle socks. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for those. I've been meaning to make myself another pair of those for a long time. All right, that's all. Okay, so next I'm going to show you what knitted or handmade projects I've brought. Oh look, little ducks. Fair warning, none of these are sewn, they're all fiber crafts. So this is my Druidry top. I made this last summer with Quince & Company yarn. It's a little nice top for when it's a little bit cooler out, but not so cool. It's definitely cotton. This one is inside out, and it is my Tuscarora top, which I made 2 summers ago. And it is also for the same situation. This is hand-dyed yarn, and the dye is definitely coming out. So it's supposed to be tan, and it's turning pretty pink. Eventually, I will probably over-dye it again. But for now, I'm pretty happy with how it is. This is, again, linen. Yeah. Don't know that there's much else to say about that. Okay. And I also brought a couple of pairs of socks. So these ones are my kindling socks. Little ankle socks I made myself a couple years ago. These are my Muche socks, which are, of course, my most favorite socks that I have ever made in my life. And this is what I mean when I say that they are basically falling apart. This one's easier to tell on because there's less variegation. So, if you look at the bottom, at the ball of the foot, you can see this area where it's thicker, and then right outside of that, it's all stretched. This whole area the yarn was basically worn down to 1 thread per strand. And I went back and duplicate stitched it way outside of the edges of where the yarn was. So I went, you know, the stretched area probably ended here, and I went way outside. And stretched area has grown again. So I don't know if you can tell, this is a good place to look at. Eventually, it's gonna break. I don't know what to do about it. Because I wear them all the time, but I am hoping to make myself another pair eventually. Preferably 2 or 3 more pairs. So, because I love these so much. So that's a free pattern on Ravelry. And again, it will all go in the show notes. All of this will be in the show notes. So if you're interested in any of this, you can go look it up. I do take fairly detailed project notes there was a time about a year ago where I stopped doing that because I got crazy busy, but I'm back on the train now. And I also brought myself a pair of long socks for the plane, for sleeping, for particularly cold days, which will definitely be the case next week. And these are the Classy Christmas colorway from Earl Grey Fiber Studios, and I love them. There's a small animal over there. I don't know what kind. I love this colorway. Absolutely adore it. So, yeah. The other thing that I brought myself, there are 4 more, I guess, technically. This one is my Stars in the Woods cowl. And again, I brought this for the plane. It's just a little extra layer of warmth for times when it's just a tiny bit cool. I didn't bring any long pants. It's the summer, I don't need them. But sometimes it does get a little bit chilly, and something like this makes all the difference. I also am playing lots and lots of games with my cousins, so I brought my dice bag. And you can tell that it's a little bit stretched out. It's old, it's a little over a year old, but more about why it's stretched out in next episode when I get back, because this is one of my Tales of Woe. And the last thing, or things that I brought, are my 2 little water balloons, which I haven't used yet, but I brought them. I might end up using them, I might not, depending. Yeah. So next up, while I'm still in this position, I'm going to talk about my March totals. So, I ended February, with about 5,500 more yards in my stash than I started the year with. March, I only got rid of yarn. So I did dryer balls, trivets, socks, and blanket squares. And I lost about 655 yards. I got rid of. Which brought me to a total of 4,941 yards brought in 2018. That leaves me with April and May to catch you up on. June is still in progress, so I don't know fully what that is, but I will do April and May the next few episodes that I've got. Next up, I'm going to do some prattle about what's happened past in my life and my vacation, and then the last segment that I'll have is going to be the future of the podcast. So, if you're not interested in the prattle, what's going to happen is at the bottom, I will have a link, and it will send you straight to the future of the podcast if you're interested in skipping the prattle. So, yeah, that's about all. So, what has happened in my life in the past month and a half? So, the last episode that I posted, I started recording April 30th, and I finished kind of May 12th-ish. I don't remember the exact dates. And it is now June 20th, so it's been about a month and a half since I last recorded. Lots of things have happened. First of all, I went to a convention. I went to KublaCon, which is a board gaming convention. I played a whole bunch of role-playing games and board games and just had a general blast. It's about half an hour away from our house, so we stayed at our house. We didn't get a hotel, but we have a friend who lives another 45 or 50 minutes past our house, who's also interested in going, so he stayed with us, and the 3 of us went in together, and it was a lot of fun. Last year I went for just 1 day. I did not expect to go every single day this year, but I did. I went Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday, and it was Memorial Day weekend. It was a blast. I wore myself out, but it was so much fun. I'll tell you more details about that in the next episode because of some other things that I started craft-wise there that are at home. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And then it was the end of the year. Everything was finishing up for school. I feel like every single time of the year I say it was insert time of the year, and so work was busy. But they're all just different kinds of busy, I guess. But this one is more of a frenetic busy. And so we were leaving to come here. Let's see, June 14th, I think. Let me think. No, June 15th, the Friday, we were leaving to come here. June 13th was the last day of school. June 14th was teacher work day to clean out your classrooms and go home. And June 15th we left. So the night of June 12th into June 13th, right into the last day of school, my husband and I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning with a yowling Poe, absolutely yowling. And it turns out that we're pretty sure he fell. We're pretty sure we know where he fell out of, but you know, we were asleep, so we don't 100% know. He was on a soft bed of clothes that we had planned to pack in our room, and when we picked him up, we realized that he was limping, and he was limping really badly. So I called the vet. The vet said, "It's not much you can do, bring him in tomorrow." So I scheduled an appointment for the next day. And turns out he fractured his hip. So I won't give you all the gross details. Here's what I'll do. Gross details start now. When I go like this, it means gross details are over. So his femur it has a little ball at the end of the femur that's in the pelvis, and it snapped off. The ball in the pelvis is completely gone. And so it was bone rubbing against bone. And the best way to fix it is to go in, remove the ball, and shave down the femur a little bit so that they're kind of like this. And the bones are not touching each other anymore. And they just have muscle there. Now, of course, that means that there is no joint for him. He has no hip joint. And so what happens, of course, is he can't really move his leg. So he has to stay in a cage until the muscle sort of congeals and becomes a fake joint. Okay, gross details over. Okay. So he has to stay in a cage for 10 weeks. He had surgery to fix his hip. And he's in a cage. He's in a cone of shame. He is not happy. And I think what's the worst about it is he had the surgery on Thursday, the day before we left. And so we had to find emergency cat sitters to give him his meds every 12 hours because a good friend of mine was going to cat sit, but she was away for the weekend. And so she was only going to be able to be there, you know, starting on that Monday. And I mean, he's in a cage. He needs meds. He needs his pain meds, his anti-inflammatories. So I was able to find a coworker who also happens to be a neighbor, which I had just found out at that moment, to help me out with that. She's been a godsend, so I'm gonna get her something for sure. But yeah, the poor guy, he's so miserable. He wants to be out of there so badly. And at first he just kind of lay there, but he wishes he could snuggle with his sister, and she'll go over to the cage and like try and get at him. And you know, and now that he's feeling better, my cat sitter tells me, it's been about a week, my cat sitter tells me that he's trying to get out of the cage. He can barely eat with the cone. He can't really clean himself. He felt so much better when my friend took a little wet paper towel and like groomed him. He was so happy, but I miss him. I wish I could just hold him, and poor guy. So I was planning to do a bunch of recording before we left, so I would have this stuff with me, but that is not happening. Yeah, so that's what's been up in my life, and on top of that, a big thing happened in my husband's life, which it's not my, not my place to share, but yeah, of course that's affected me as well. Yeah, so I guess now what's going to happen with my vacation? So my vacation is 3 weeks long, and I have been looking forward to this for months. Oh gosh. So here's the way this works. I went to college in Rochester. I met my husband in Rochester. A lot of my best friends are still in Rochester. A lot of my family's in Rochester. Rochester, New York, up by, that's in upstate New York, kind of near Buffalo, if you know where that is. And so what's happening is my family is going to a rocket launch. They're into rocketry, they launch rockets, and it is awesome. The rocket launch is in the area. It's about an hour and a half outside of Rochester. And so what's happening is, in the past we've just sort of gone the weekend of and gotten to meet up with people, but, we wanted to spend more time together as a family, and my grandparents are not doing so great, and so the decision was that we were going to rent a house on Canandaigua Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. If you're not familiar with the Finger Lakes, it's basically glaciers or carved lakes straight, gorged through the earth straight down, almost like fingers. They look kind of like this, and they're long, skinny lakes. And so we're just here. We're on the lake. We rented a 10-bedroom house, a 10-person house, 11-person house actually, but it's wonderful. We're having so much fun. It's great. So we'll be here for a week, and then starting on Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the rocket launch. So hopefully the rain holds off until the rocket launch is over, and that'll be so much fun. And then Sunday, after we leave the rocket launch, we're gonna go meet up with some friends from college. And they, of course, are still working during the day. And so we did this last year. We spent a week here. And I'm so excited. We just played games and had fun and went out for pizza, which I really, really, really miss New York pizza. And, everybody tells me, oh, try X. It's just like New York pizza. It never is. It never is in California. Anybody that's from California, I'm sorry, but your pizza is horrible. Yeah, it's just awful. But, even the airport pizza in JFK, the best pizza I've had in a year. Anyway, so, yeah, we're gonna go, and it'll just be so much fun. It'll be so much fun. And they work during the day. And so during the day is when I want to work on more complicated knitting projects and stuff like that. That's probably when I'll be editing this as well. The past couple of hours, my family has been mostly napping and reading, but I'm hearing people talk again, so after I finish recording, I'll go hang out with my family. But yeah, I'm here right now with my cousins and my parents and my aunts and uncles and my grandparents, and it's really nice. So then, after that week that we spend with our college friends, we're going to drive about 4 hours. It's in upstate, but in a different area, to see my in-laws, and that'll be really nice. Normally we have a family reunion with my in-laws, but this year they're meeting for a cousin's wedding, which is in October, which is during the school year, so I can't make it. So we're just going to meet up with them and see my brother-in-law and my mother-in-law, father-in-law. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I get along with them pretty well. I know some people have, issues with their in-laws, and, sure, their family works differently than mine does, but they're a group of pretty great people. Yeah, so I'm excited, and it's just gonna be really, really nice. And so, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to see my cousins-in-law, if you will, this year, but next year, hopefully. Yeah, so that's what this vacation is gonna be. It's just gonna be wonderful. I'm really excited to just take this time and relax. I find it so much more relaxing than sitting at home, because I force myself to actually enjoy knitting instead of feeling guilty every time I knit because I could be cleaning or something like that. And yeah, so that's what vacation is going to be, and I am very excited. And now, some discussion of what is up next for this podcast. So I don't know if you can tell, but we're nearly back to the spot where we started recording. It's a beautiful day on the lake, and I love it out here. But so, what's coming up next for the podcast? Well, the short answer is I don't know, but changes. If you are a long-term viewer, you will know that I have been really not in a good schedule of podcasting. I've been podcasting essentially every 6 weeks or so, which is just too long. It's just too long to go. By the time 6 weeks have gone by, I have so many works in progress and finished objects that in order to really talk about them, I have to be recording for 3 hours. And quite frankly, I don't feel like... I don't know. I feel like just going over my projects, I'm not really adding anything at all to the fiber community. So I'm hoping to record shorter episodes focused on something specific. So maybe I'll record an episode on shawls or socks, or, maybe I'll record an episode that's just about finished objects, and then one just about works in progress, and then one that, is about a certain topic or something like that. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. If I could get shorter episodes in on a more regular basis, that would be a lot better for me. But also, I'm starting to wonder what the point is of just recording all my projects. I feel like it's very monotonous, it doesn't add anything, and, who am I to say my projects are better, right? And I don't know. I either need to come up with a better, more engaging, more unique way of doing this, or I need to quit. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what do you value about this podcast? What do you wish you saw more of? What do you dislike? What do you think is problematic? What do you want to see more of? And I'm trying very hard this school year. It's funny, people do resolutions a lot at the beginning of the year, and I talked about my fortitude word, and whoo, did that backfire. More on that a little bit later, but I guess maybe definitely next episode, not this one if it's gonna happen. But I tend to make resolutions and start over at the beginning of every school year. And so as this summer happens and I gear up for next school year, I'm being very hesitant to take on and commit to doing things that I don't know if I have time for. I said I was going to make this more of a community in 2018, and then I was in the hospital, my husband was in the hospital, my cats were in the hospital twice, and my parents came to visit. Clearly that's, not conducive to really investing a lot in the podcast. And, things also kind of blew up at work in a very serious way. And so, I'm hesitant to commit to something, but I would really like your ideas. I would like to know, do you think is my podcast worth watching to you? If so, why? And if not, also why? Don't be mean. Don't tell me I'm the most horrible person you've ever met. But be honest. Be gentle, but be honest. I do want to hear what you have to say. So, I don't know. I'm looking for input, I guess. Over the past, 3 years, I guess. What have I done that was the most engaging or the most, I don't know, just something. Give me something, you guys. What do I do with this come next school year? How do I turn this podcast into something that works for me and works for you and is unique and isn't overwhelming and brings something real to the community instead of just clogging it up? And honestly, the real question for me is, what do I do with my life? Because ultimately, this podcast is part of my life. It's part of the things that I commit myself to. And yeah, I don't want it to become a chore, but I don't want to cut it out completely because, I don't know, maybe I should cut it out completely. Maybe I just don't have time for it. Obviously, this is a bit more of an existential question than I think a lot of you guys can answer, but I'm opening it up for your input. And if you think, your input isn't going to be valid because you don't know what's going on in my life and all the details and nuances, just give it to me anyway. I'm not going to be offended. This isn't like, my cousin coming over and telling me, this is how you should run your life. Not that any of my cousins do that, but, generic example. This is you, based on what you know, giving input. And I'm not going to feel offended if you give me input that doesn't apply. I'll just say, it's okay, you don't really know me, it probably doesn't apply, and I'm directly asking for advice and input right now. So, all the normal rules of rudeness and understanding, I guess, don't apply. Again, don't be rude, but I want your input. even if you think you don't have enough information. Give me any thoughts that you have. You can leave them on YouTube, you can leave them on the episode thread, whatever works for you, but I really would like your input. And on that note, I think that's about it for today. So I hope you guys have a wonderful time crafting or whatever it is that you do. I will see you guys later, and at the end here I'm going to put in some pictures of my broken cat as well as some footage of the lake house. So I will see you all later. Bye!
Mom pointed out if we do the chicken pot pies tonight,